Hello all, welcome. If you've been here for a few of the last couple days, we are in Black and Data Week. Today is the third day. We are learning about visuals. It's very eclectic. You will see Jarrett with R and Shiny. You will see Lauren with Python and Wine. So welcome, and welcome back to those of you who have been here before. So today we have Jarrett, and if you have not been with Black Ties before, Jarrett was actually here from like day one in 2020 when we started. He is a member of the faculty in the Decision and System Sciences Department of St. Joseph's University. He teaches data visualization, data mining, R, welcome, business statistics, and he is also a consultant, principal consultant, because titles matter, and he is about to start a PhD in risk and decision analytics with a concentration in applied math. So, big brains all around. Welcome, Jarrett. Take it away. I'm gonna mute myself and go on silent here, but I will be monitoring the chat in case folks have motion and questions.
So good evening, everyone. So welcome to our session on visualization with R Shiny. So let me start sharing my screen, and we're gonna first get into a brief presentation just to kind of set the tone for everything, and then we'll go into our demo. I'll first preface by saying that if you so I've made this where it is fairly basic in terms of intro to using R Shiny. So if you have at least some basic knowledge of R, it should be easy to kind of follow along. So if you have some degree of R knowledge and you have R Studio already up, you feel free to open it up and kind of follow some of the fun journey along today. If you would rather just kind of watch and maybe watch the recording after it is done, and be able to do it then, you are welcome to do so. And hopefully this will be a good stepping stone to making doing other creative projects using our Shiny. So just as C had mentioned, I am a principal consultant at Analytical Solutions. I'm I'm on the faculty in the Decision System Science Department at St. Joe's. So I get a lot of courses like business stat, data mining, undergraduate and graduate level. I also teach R programming, data viz, linear algebra, applied predictive analytics. And then, yes, my undergrad is in math and econ, then a master's in BIA, got a second master's in applied math back in like 2020, and then now I'm back for my final degree. This will be the last degree the world gets out of me, my PhD in risk and decision analytics. So that will be starting that'll be starting very soon. So first, let me go into what exactly is R Shiny. So it is essentially a web application framework for R. And what you can essentially do is turn R scripts into more interactive web apps. So if you think about when you're using R and you have a data set and you visualize it like you make some form of graph or you have a table or so, that's great in how you can be able to spit out nice graphs or so. You can be able to put it in presentations or so. But if you like it to be a interactive web app, then this is what you can be able to use. So there is essentially two main components. There's a UI, the user interfaces, and that is, of course, the front-facing part. So the user of it, that's what they will see. The server is going to be the logic behind the scenes. So in this, we're going to be building both ends of this. So R Shiny, again, makes data exploration more interactive. So you can be able to take a data set and really bring it out to life. And if you're a data analyst here, you probably have some knowledge of some degree of SQL, R, maybe Python. For obviously a lot of web apps, you typically have to know JavaScript, HTML, CSS, and if you do know those, that is great. There's a lot of things you can do with those. However, if you are in the more analytics space like me, where again my area is very much SQL, Python, R, and as far as like my three main languages, this allows you to be able to make the data exploration very interactive. You can be able to have an internal tool or a web app or a dashboard, and it really works with data manipulation and plotting libraries that is featured with R. So, so before I go into some more of my presentation, I'm going to put this into the chat because these are some really interesting. These are some really interesting. These are some really interesting ones. So be sure to open this up somewhere and be able to look at this at your leisure. It's really interesting. There, you can go onto here. This is one where you can look at telephones by region from 1951 to 1961. So you can be able to see the growth of telephones if you want to look at North America versus Europe, Oceania. This one is really interesting. So it looks at the freedom of press index. So you can be able to look at varying different countries and the amount of freedom of press in a particular country. So it's really interesting. You can go into these series. You can be able to see the ranking and the scores overall. And so this is a really in-depth one. There's a research and development business game. I have not played this one yet, so this is something I'm going to be diving into fairly soon. This is one that's going to be a very useful one. So if you wanted to look at rental cash flow, you can be able to enter in your information into here. You can be able to calculate it. So I like to cycle, so this was really interesting to be able to find. You can be able to look at different stats. And NCAA swimming is another really interesting one. So if I want to look at New England versus Mid-Atlantic, so on and so forth. So you can find all of these in this Kaggle site. So be sure. So I would definitely recommend looking through that at your leisure. It's really interesting, and these are definitely some more advanced stuff you can be able to once you really start to get used to our Shiny, you can be able to dive into. So I'm going to explain more of this when we actually get into the actual demonstration. But when it comes to a Shiny app, you essentially have the UI portion. So after you call the package, you have the actual UI portion, the part that's going to be more front facing, and then you have the server portion, which is you're then going to have custom logic as you fit into whatever data set that you're working with, and then you have a way to be able to queue up the particular app. So a lot of core things that are important to know here is it's very reactive programming, which means that when you interact with the UI, when you enter in particular inputs, it's going to react. It's going to give you some form of output or customized output depending on what you have inputted or whatever parameters you're working with. There of course are different types of inputs. You can have sliders, drop downs, text fields, so on and so forth. You have the outputs, which can be in the form of plots, tables, text, anything you would like to have in there. And then, of course, the reactivities when you're connecting those inputs of how you're going into interacting with that slider, with that drill down, with that text field. And then, of course, the individual output that would come from that reactivity element in there. So as I mentioned, you can do things such as you can build a dashboard for reporting KPIs by using R. So for example, if you wanted to make a whole web app in that form, you could be able to. So if you wanted to be like, I like Tableau, I like Power BI, but I really love coding. This is another way to do it. You can also have very interactive data visualization. So you can be able to interact based off of time, location, so on and so forth. You have obviously all kinds of data exploration tools and you can be able to even do some degree of simulation. And then there you can also do things such as custom calculators. So for example, the rent calculation calculator, you can be able to create a calculator where again you're working with that reactive input where you're gonna be able to put in particular parameters and it will spit out a particular calculation that would be helpful to you. So as I mentioned, there's a lot of really fun real world examples. So you can do things such as do NCAA bracket predictions. There's stock that the middle one, the bracket predictions. I found one. I loved it. It was created a couple of years ago and now it is taken down and I'm very sad. Part of me wants to now recreate it. So that might be a little fun rabbit hole I may go under doing things such as real estate price explorers, medical decision support tools, so on and so forth. So you can, of course, share your Shiny apps. Now, for this demonstration, it's going to be a local. We'll make it local, but what I probably might do is we probably might if you guys seem to really like this, I might do a kind of a part two where we start to dive even deeper into creating Shiny apps. We can be able to make some form of a kind of we can be able to build some type of web app or so, and that would be interesting. ShinyApps.io, our studio allows you to be able to host apps for free. And again, you're going to learn how to build a simple interactive Shiny app, and they will have drop downs. There'll be plots that is based on your input. You will understand the reactivity in this, and you can be able to do some basic styling in it. So we will so let's actually get started. So let me switch over here and let me go to, hold on, not this one. Hold on. Oh, here it is.
At this point, Jarrett, I would just like to request if you have any resources for the people who would like to follow along, if
Mm-hmm.
you could share those
Mm-hmm.
so we can.
So if you like to download, RStudio, I will provide the link into the chat. Everything else you can pretty much follow along. I do have a note a text note with essentially the file with the code written within it. I do have to clean up a little bit, but I'll have that shared out with the recording. And then the base, if you want to follow along, the first part is essentially loading in, creating the data set. I am going to provide that code directly to you guys in the text chat, just so you can be able to just so you can be able to follow along. So first, let me give you the R Studio. So if you haven't downloaded and you wanted to download and follow along, you can. If you want to watch, you can. And then the first bit of code I am going to kind of write in um into the chat as I do this. So when you are building an app, you're gonna be relying on what's called the Shiny package. So just in case you may not be aware, when it comes to R works with varying different packages that are made by people everywhere. I can create a package in R if I wanted to. I won't, or at least not yet, but you can. But you're going to be using what's called the Shiny package. So you can do install dot packages, and then in quotations, I'm going to put Shiny. It's going to be all lowercase. And then after that, I would want to call the package. So library, and I essentially hit tab to essentially give me the double parentheses. And I'm just gonna write Shiny. Now, what was it? So I'm gonna put this into the chat. I'm gonna put this in the chat for ease of use. Now, I am not going to install it because I already have it installed, so I'm just going to merely call the package. So if you put a hashtag, next to it, that is going to, you're essentially commenting that out just because I've already installed it. It doesn't make sense to kind of reinstall over it. So I'm going to start off by highlighting this. See, if you have not installed it, you would want to highlight all of this. But I'm just going to highlight just the library Shiny, and I'm going to hit run. And if you are new to R, when you see like warning message, Shiny was built on that is perfectly normal. It's usually just me because R Studio updates. R consistently updates all the time, so naturally some things might be built in different versions. It does it's fairly benign, so you don't have to worry about it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to essentially create a fake data set. And what I mean by that is we're going to do real estate prices in North Carolina. It is a state that is near and dear to me. I was born in North Carolina in Winston-Salem. I lived there until middle school. I came back after undergrad and I lived there until this year in Charlotte. So I wanted so I figure if I'm going to make a fake data set, I'm going to make it North Carolina based. So it's going to just be a simple data set where we're going to look at median real estate prices from 2020 through 2024. Again, this line of code, I am going to directly paste and give to you, but at least kind of show you the ins and outs of this. So we're going to call our data set real estate. Oh yeah, I'm also just manually creating a data set using data frames just because to make it kind of easier to just send you off the code and you can be able to kind of work from that. So we're going to call this real estate and it's going to be a data frame. So data dot frame. And and then I usually do a tab and I create the open and close parenthesis. Obviously, as a reminder, if you have used R before, every opening has to have a closing. So you might see at some point a code's going to fail, and it's because I forgot to close something or because I have an extra um parenthesis or bracket or so. That is perfectly normal. I still make that kind of mistake. So this is going to be essentially three columns: city, year, and median price. So first we're going to define city. City is going to be what's called a replicate. So it's going to be a replicate element of a vector. And for this vector, I'm going to manually put in here the actual values that we're going to use in here. So in this case, it's going to be Charlotte, and there are going to be 5 cities for this: Raleigh, Durham, Winston-Salem, and Greensboro. And I'm going to close out this. I'm going to go back to over here because we're now going to close this parenthesis and times. So times, and it's going to be, we're having 5 elements in here because again, we're just manually just creating this. Sorry. So year is going to be, and again, this is just going to be it's going to be for 5 consecutive years. So it's going to be 2020 to 2024. And for this, because we're using we're using consecutive integers, we're going to do each, and it's going to be 5 because we're going to be using 5 years. And then median price equals, and this is going to be a data frame, and I'm going to enter here. I'm going to directly paste this just because what was it? I'm going to directly paste this into here just because I am pretty sure if I just type this all out, I'm going to make some kind of error. So and of course you want to check to make sure that every opening has a close. And then what I would also want to do is I would also, just to make sure I have created this correctly, I would just want to do print. And I'm going to do real estate. And this is going to be very important because I'm going to reference the table that I'm about to print out just to make for a few particular reasons, and I'll explain why soon. So I'm going to highlight all of this. I'm going to run this. And then as you see, and this is exactly what I want. So each year in all the cities and then the median home price. So it looks like this. So right now it's just a simple table. There isn't much you can do with it, work with this. And I'm going to paste this directly into the chat in case anyone wants to just directly copy and paste this into their RStudio. So this should run. So this should run. So we've now created our data set. I also like to segregate these out with double quotation. So creating our data set. Sorry about that. So what we're going to do is we are going to, so as a reminder, when it comes to our Shiny, there is essentially going to be two portions of this that we're going to be making, the UI and then the server. So if we get, so we're going to first build the app skeleton. And I'm going to so I'm going to directly paste this. I'm going to essentially talk through all the parts that we're doing for this. So if you look at this, UI is what we're going to be calling it. It's going to be a fluid page. And what I mean by a fluid page is that we want this to be a fluid page because the app is going to make it sensitive reactive to the screen size because like this screen that we're on right now, this is a roughly 26-inch monitor that I'm looking off of. I have a 14-inch laptop screen on my actual laptop. You can maybe have a 17-inch laptop screen. You can have a 32 or a 46-inch desktop screen. Or it can be something, or if it's an app that's going to be open on someone's iPhone. The fluid app portion allows this to essentially be reactive to adapt to the particular screen size. So the title panel is going to essentially be the actual title of the individual app. So this is going to be North Carolina real estate prices. So you do open paren and then you would just manually enter what you would like to title this to be. Of course, when you make it more interactive, even this can be reactive based off of some particular element of it. When it comes to the sidebar layout, it splits the app into two areas. You have a sidebar and a main panel. So if we go back to, if we go back into, so for example, here, let me read. So this on the left is the sidebar. Over here is the main panel. If you think about, let's say, and and of course you can of course adjust this based off it, but if you think about, let's say, this. Now of course more advanced code can be able to customize even more, but you think about this. The left side is the sidebar, and this is the main panel that you're looking at. So of course you're essentially splitting it into there. So you have sidebar here, and then charts will go here, just so you can have just so you can be able to have the basic wireframe. So, and then the server is going to be a function of the input and the output, and the curly bracket and per the individual package that you're working with, you of course would want to have the curly brackets. So I'm going to run this. And you're gonna see something very briefly. So what this is what is called a wireframe. Now, of course, this is just the basic skeleton. This is just showing you what exactly is going to go. The sidebar is going to be here, and then the charts are going to go here. So just to give you just a basic element of what it's going to be. And I'm going to close this for a very specific reason. We're going to be building more code to build in both the UI and the server and all the reactive and interactive elements in here. And if I keep that open, when I start from here on out, whatever line of code that I start to run, it's going to basically try to run forever because what's happening is it's wanting you to close it, close out the app within our studio. So um, until it's done. So, and the Shiny app, this is by default if if you're going to locally host, if it's just going to be local for now, this is how you can be able to open your app at any given point. So the next part is we're going to add the reactive input. So essentially, how exactly is the user going to be interacting with this to essentially select something, which in itself is going to react to it. So of course, we're going to add a reactive input. So for this, we're going to essentially create a drop-down menu. And what we're going to be doing is we're going to essentially be updating the sidebar panel. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do sidebar panel. Oops. Sidebar panel. So sidebar panel. And what we're going to be doing is the app is we're going to be opening this and we're going to be choosing a particular city, and that's what we're going to be working with. So we're going to do city and then comma, and then the actual text that's going to go to this. So we're going to say choose a city. Then the colon. But of course, we have to assign it to something. So choices equals unique. And then it's gonna be from the real estate data set. So real estate $ as a from the real estate data set. And then now you have your the three columns that make the data set. So in this case, we're going to do the city one. I'm just going to hit tab just so I can have it exactly right. If I was to type this in manually, what I would do, I would just scroll back up and I would make sure, because you want to make sure that the data set name and the actual field is typed out exactly as it is. Otherwise, you will create some kind of you'll create some kind of error. Also, I've realized I need to start out with the select input. Sorry about that. That is my own faux pas. I do apologize. You essentially have to select a input, and that you have to select an input that they're going to be interacting with. Now, of course, you can have as many inputs as you would like to, because of course you want to have different sliders, different ways you can be able to interact with it. In this case, we're just going to have one. And so the next thing is we want to do is we want to have a plot that's going to essentially be our output placeholder. Add a plot output placeholder. Add plot output to the UI. And this is going to be just a couple of simple lines. So it's going to be main panel, because of course this is not going to be in the sidebar because the reactive input that's going to be in the sidebar. The actual plot is going to be in the actual main panel. And we're going to do plot output. And then it's going to be the price plot, which we defined earlier. And then of course and always, as I always tell my art students, you want to make sure every bracket and parenthesis, you want to make sure every opening has a closing and you don't have anything extra. The plot output reserves the space for the particular plot. Nothing will show until the server actually renders it. And of course, the price plot is just a name, but we have to make sure it matches what we have in the server code. Now we're going to add the server logic, and I'm going to paste this in here just for the sake of time. But I'm going to explain each part of this for you all. So this is the server logic. And of course, this is quite literally how to make the plot work. Because we just basically added all the UI stuff. Now we want to actually build the logic to actually make the individual plots work. So I'm going to paste this in here. And when you think about a breakdown of all of this, you have to start off with the server. And of course, it's going to be a function of the input and the output. And then everything, all the logic is going to be enclosed with our curly bracket. So the output is going to be the price plot, which is over here. And as assigned to, and we're going to render a plot. We're going to be taking a subset of data. So it's going to be filtering the data based we're going to be doing a subset of our data. So it's going to be a subset of the real estate data set, and it's going to be based on the city because you have to essentially select based off of what the person is going to be selecting. Now, of course, if we were selecting multiple things, we would have we would have to repeat this logic for the amount of times that you have different inputs. But for this, we only have one input, which of course is you are going to select a city. So real estate city, and the input's going to be the city field. Then of course we have to actually build the plot. Now, if you have experience, if you've done some kind of fairly basic plots, so think about your bar plots, your line plots. In this case, it's a line plot. We are going to so a lot of this is going to look very familiar. Now we go in and actually build the plot. So the plot is going to be based on our subset of our data. And then you're going to be selecting the year because that's going to be the time series element. And then the subset data and off the median price. So what you're going to basically doing is you're going to be plotting the two particular fields that are not the reactive input, which is the case we're going to be looking at the year and the median price for that particular city. The type is going to be B. It's going to be both points and lines. There is a cheat sheet for that, which I will also include with you in the materials. The color, again, I'm just going to do a simple blue. You can essentially enter any color in here. Has a vast palette of colors you can choose, but I'm just going to go simple with blue. PCH is what's called the plotting character. The plotting character, which means for how are we going to be what character is going to represent the actual value since we're doing a line chart. So I'm just going to do a solid dot, and there's a series of numbers. Again, I'm going to provide that cheat sheet for you all as well. You could have also had, let's say, a open dot. You can have a solid box, an open box, a diamond, all different plotting characters. But again, I'm going to keep it simple with just a solid dot. The X label, so X lab stands for X label. That is going to be our year. And of course, our Y label, so our Y axis is going to be our median price. And then main. Main is going to essentially be how we're going to be titling this. And because I'm just going to manually put in the logic for that, it's going to be paste median home price in. Because regardless of what city I have selected, it's going to be regardless of what city I've selected, it's always going to be median price in. But then I have to now define based on the city. So it's going to be the input based on the input that that they've put in earlier, input, and then whatever city they have selected. So it's going to be median price in, and if I've selected Winston-Salem, median price in Winston-Salem, based on whatever they have selected. So one of the final parts. So the final part of this is we're going to make this a little bit pretty. And again, for the sake of time, I am going to paste this in here. To make it pretty, we're going to add some layout elements and help text. So this is more so just to make it kind of look a little more presentable. So if you go into the UI page, it's going to be a fluid page. The title panel is going to be North Carolina real estate prices. We have the sidebar layout and the sidebar panels. And of course, a lot of this is going to be prior logic from earlier that you just have to include in here. For the sidebar panel, H3 is essentially to add a subheading to the sidebar. And it's to basically give you and you basically would call it filter options. So essentially so it's basically if you were to hover over something, it basically gives you a kind of a subheading to basically give you some basic direction. And then you want to repeat the logic for the actual reactive input. So the select input, the choosing a city. And then a help text is going to be, if you want, this is going to be non-interactive text, like a data note, a description, or if you, let's say, wanted to include some kind of text to help them when they put something in there. So for example, if you want to, if it's you manually put in, if we're using median prices of all cities, you can say, enter in a zip code or the city with the state as a way to help them. But in this case, I just want to put the data source. And of course, this is just a hypothetical housing data for 2020 to 2024. And then of course, the main plot is going to be the price plot, which we've already added the logic in. And that is how you're going to be able to essentially create that. So these, of course, are going to be the different elements that's going to go into creating that particular plot. So there's a lot of other things that you can place in here, but of course we're just going to use a fairly basic one. So what I want to do now is, if you remember, I haven't ran the code since we've added this. So of course I want to first add in all of this. So you want to run all of this logic. Hold on. Hold on. Just to be on the safe side, I'm just going to put in. So sorry, what was it? Sorry, I meant to, what was it? I meant to run the individual snippets because so I do apologize for that. That is my own faux pas. And this should pretty much be 99.9% of the same. So I'm just going to go in and we're going to go into here. I'm just going to. So running all of that essentially builds all of it into there. So when you run all the individual lines, it's not going to actually return anything in the console like most of your R commands, and that is because it's actually building it into the actual app that you're building. So essentially what's happening is the Shiny app is essentially going to be creating HTML code based on the R code that you have created, and it's going to run that in the background. Now, of course, we want to call our app because again, this is a locally run. And now you have the real estate prices. So if you think about filter options, so I titled this filter options so you can see all the different options. Choose a city. So if you click on this, you have all of the different cities. You have, of course, whatever help text you have, and then you have the median home price in, and right now by default, Charlotte is selected. So you can be able to see that. Now, if I wanted to change this, I want to see my home, my birth city of Winston-Salem. I can change this, and now it is changed based off of the data for Winston-Salem. So the basic skeleton of it remains the same, but of course the plot changes. So if you think about if I was to just have this data set in R and I wanted to, let's say, and I were to create this just on Winston-Salem, that's what I could have done. But of course, I want to make this interaction. So if I wanted to go to now Durham, Bull City, you can be able to see for Durham. For Greensboro, I can now look at Greensboro. For Raleigh, I can look at Raleigh, so on and so forth. And then, of course, I can also open this in a browser. And of course, this is still locally hosted. But if I go into here, this is now, and if you saw in that split section, in that split second where you saw it adjusting, that's because it was a fluid page. I moved it over from my 14-inch laptop screen to now my 26-inch, and it's adjusting it based off of that. So of course, this is now a locally hosted app. And of course, if you wanted to make this into an app you want to share, that can be in a nice little part too. We can talk about different, more interactive elements, how to be able to host it, how to be able to integrate real data in there. So that is pretty much it. So are there any and by the way, a lot of this, so all of the code, a lot of the cheat sheets for the plotting characters and the libraries of colors, I'm going to provide this to Sia later on this week, and she will be able to provide this to all of you who have registered to this event. That's so if you wanted to try this on your own, you can be able to do this on your own. But are there any questions? I haven't been able to keep up with the chat, so I'm not sure if there's any questions there, but are there any
Jarrett.
questions?
It looks like everybody was really paying attention. I will pause for questions and drop this survey so you all have it, but this is your moment. Are your can the questions be about R Shiny in general? Because maybe folks have broader questions.
What was it? If there's any broader questions, you feel free to ask.
Okay, a shy bunch. Is everybody getting ready for Juneteenth? Ooh, look at that. Namdi asked. By the way, please correct me if your names are said differently.
Mm,
I'm saying this as a person who was East African, so I don't know if
mm.
I'm saying Namdi correctly. But question for you, Jarrett. Can we incorporate geospatial R packages? Very fancy.
Yes.
IET map.
Mm. So the short answer is you can actually integrate pretty much any package. Now there are some package there's a small number of packages that may not work well with Shiny, but the majority of packages, I would say about 98% of them, you can be able to integrate into there. Now, for the purposes of kind of building a basic app, I decided to go kind of package less. So just where we're just using the Shiny package, but yes when you what was it if you were trying to use if you were trying to use, let's say, tmap, and there's a few others that I'm aware of or have used myself in the past, you would essentially do that. You can essentially use those. So for example, if instead of if instead of, let's say, a general basic line chart, which is what I just did, if you wanted to do a T-map plot that you could do on or any other geospatial, you can be able to put in the general logic that you would have used in without using Shiny, integrating it into there. So if you remember, we just did over here. So if you were to make a plot, so outside of Shiny, if I was to just take this data set and just make a basic plot out of it, it would pretty much be the same, the same logic. But if I wanted to use if I had logic that I've already built in for for either a T-map plot or a map or something for a geospatial, for anything else even outside of geospatial, you can be able to put in the logic that you've built in prior. My personal advice is if you are going to be building a Shiny app using different packages, I would recommend, let's say, trying to build it outside of doing it in Shiny, just so you can see what it looks like, and then build it into the Shiny app once you know it's good and ready. And that's you can be able to, because I've made a couple of apps. They're now decommissioned because they've kind of gone past their usefulness, but where I've used different packages or so. But I'm actually going to be building one later on this summer because I'm teaching R programming this upcoming fall, and I want to show them the integration of different packages. But really good question. Really good question, Namdi. If you don't mind me asking a question to the general group, how much experience do you guys have with R? Again, are you guys you can put into the chat, are you guys like a beginner? You've done it for a couple of years, you've done it for several years. I'm just this is more of a genuine curiosity on my end. Couple
Okay,
years, but not hardcore. That's good. Beginner, so good way to kind of get your feet wet. Mhm. Intermediate but very rusty. What was it? That's how it described me up until a couple of years ago, because I did a lot of coding in R, and then I got into a job role where I went a few years without coding and doing anything in R, and then got back into it. I was like, ooh, I am more rusty than I thought. But yeah, but I love seeing the different kind of levels of experience here. So thank you all for answering that. Any other questions? I guess hearing none, Sia, do you want to close us out for the session?
sure. Yeah, thank you all for coming and for all of the I know that technical sessions are more challenging to listen to than like a very inspirational, career talk. So I applaud everybody for hanging in there. That's what I was trying to say. Um, and for another technical session, Lauren is coming up at the top of is it 7 p.m. So you can catch Lauren's talk. She is doing something about predicting wine preferences. Also with code. This is going to be in Python. So if you are interested in that, you can join. If you would like to see some of our other technical things, they are on the YouTube channel. I know Jarrett has done other sessions and he will be doing a course at some point. So stay tuned if this is of interest to you. He has, like I said, lots of big brains, lots of degrees and math in there to share. Um, but if y'all could, again, fill out our survey and let us know how this session or any session that you attended, because they're all in there, we'd be happy to know. It helps us plan and like just, how we can put things together for the community. But yeah, until an hour from now, get some rest, get a snack, come back for Lauren, and thank you again.
Thank you all for attending.